sees the means of production, and the like and subscribe button.
Experts say the constitutional crisis is here now.
The Trump administration deporting hundreds of men without a trial.
A massive purge.
I hate this video. Do you? Are they cringe? They are
FBI,
New York Times.
to make people afraid of speaking out against him.
I'm leaving to the University of Toronto because I want to do my work without the fear that I will be punished for my words.
The lesson of 1933 is you get out sooner rather than later.
I've spent a lot of time in the last decade trying.
This is literally correct, though. The brain drain we're about to experience is insane. It's already happening. I guess I maybe, like, in terms of my disposition against this or whatever, it is a little bit rough that it's coming from the New York Times. The New York Times is genuinely one of the most collaborationist papers in the United States. I would say they're oftentimes far more damaging than, like, Fox News, because the New York Times is so respected, at least by people who aren't in the know, and they manufacture consent so aggressively, and they are one of the worst when it comes to sane washing too. Genuinely, go find me a New York Times article where the headline that's about Trump, where the headline or even the body of the article comes even close to showing how psychotic he is. You know, you'll probably find it. It's just you're gonna have trouble. You'll have trouble finding it. And I'm not saying that's the fault of these guys or anything. It's just like, you know,
to prepare people if Trump were elected once, let alone twice.
Look what happened. Is this crazy?
I did not flee Trump, but if people are going to leave the United States or leave American universities, there are reasons for that. One thing you can definitely learn from Russians
Is that it's essential to set up centers of resistance in places of relative safety.
It is unfortunate that guy has that voice, which kind of like guarantees no one will take him seriously a little bit. But yeah, that's not fair. I'm just pointing it out.
I want to make sure that if there is a political crisis in the U.S., that Americans are organized.
We've just gotten started. You haven't even seen anything yet. It's all just kicking in.
My colleagues and friends, they were walking around and saying, we have checks and balances, so let's inhale, checks and balances, exhale, checks and balances. And I thought, my God, we're like people on the Titanic saying our ship can't sink. We've got the best ship, we've got the strongest ship, we've got the biggest ship, our ship can't sink. And what you know as a historian is that there is no such thing as a ship that can't sink.
The golden age of America has only just begun.
I don't agree with what they're sorry, I don't disagree with what they're saying, like, at all, essentially. I hate the New York Times. Where have these people been before the election? The New York Times has many employees. I'm sure their writing on this has been consistent. These three, my guess is that they've been consistent. The organization they work for is outright collaborationist. You know, my guess is that they stick with it because they're given the opportunity to have their work published. I don't mind. I mean, if people want to leave, like, yeah, the country's like, you know, you've got one life. Better to not spend it in a country that's sinking. Besides, it's possible that you leaving can do more good than you staying in some cases, right? For example, if you're a top academic, you know, like you work in material science, biological, pharmaceutical sciences or whatever, you're leaving, like, what are you going to do to protest Trump doing your job at home, right? Oh, I'll do pharmaceutical research, less good. What are you doing there, right? You could leave, you could do that work in France, probably have a better life, and you'd contribute to both an actual and perceived decline in America as a consequence of Trump, which is a good thing, you know? I don't know.
America has long had an exceptionalist narrative. Fascism can happen elsewhere, but not here.
But talking about American exceptionalism is basically a way to get people to fall into line. If you think that there's this thing out there called America, and it's exceptional, that means that you don't have to do anything. Whatever is happening, it must be freedom. And so then what your definition of freedom is just gets narrowed and narrowed and narrowed and narrowed, and soon you're using the word freedom, but what you're talking about is authoritarianism.
A good example of this is that Americans still love to praise themselves for being like bastions of freedom in a increasingly nanny state-esque world. In a lot of ways, like, America has less economic freedom and less actual political freedom than other countries. BDS laws or anti-BDS laws in the United States, slap suits. The fact that corporations can buy election victories so easily, you know, after Citizens United especially, but like also just broadly, right? In many places in the rest of the world, you have the freedom to get around without a car. Here, you best be willing to spend a significant portion of your income paying down a car bill, plus gas, plus maintenance. So it is true that people's like, you know, chauvinistic impulse to go, oorah, oorah, America, does often make them kind of like sheep who are really easy to prey on. Very easy to prey on, because they, you know, like it's like, well, your notion of exceptionalism is detached from reality, right? Like it's like there are Americans who unironically think that we're the only democracy. We aren't even close to the most democratic country. Not even close, especially not now, but like 10 years ago too. So, you know.
Toni Morrison warned us.
The descent into a final solution is not a jump. It's one step. And then another. And then another.
We are seeing those steps accelerated right now.
There are some words, in Russian in particular, that I feel help us to understand what's happening in the United States, because we now have those phenomena. Произвол. It's the idea that the powers that be can do anything they want to you, and you have no recourse.
That does sound like a term that would be coined in Russia.
This not knowing who is next creates a state of paralysis in society.
The Tufts student whose visa was removed because she co-authored an article in the Tufts student newspaper.
Yep. In line with America's decline, we have ceased funding for mRNA vaccines. Yep. The federal government announced Wednesday that it is canceling a contract to develop a vaccine to protect people against flu viruses that could cause pandemics, including the bird flu virus that's been spreading among dairy cows in the U.S., citing concerns about the safety of the mRNA technology being used. Crazy stuff, right? Yeah, it was pretty recent. Like that's national decline stuff right there. Yeah, that's Pol Pot shit. That's like Lysenkoism shit right there. Yeesh. After a rigorous review, we've concluded that continued investment in Moderna's H5N1 mRNA vaccine was not scientifically or ethically justifiable, said Health and Human Services Communication Director Andrew Nixon in a statement. So yeah, this was like a breakthrough technology created through billions in pharma research that the US government funded, which provided a miraculous ability to vaccinate against diseases and move through the vaccine scheduling process relatively quickly. And we're just not going to do it anymore because conservatives decided that being pro-disease was a culture war issue they could fight and win on, which they did, and they did.
I thought, what would I do if guys in masks tried to grab my student? Would I scream? Would I run away? Would I try to pull the mask off? Would I try to video?
Oh yeah, remember all ICE agent abductions? They look like this now. It's a bunch of guys with masks and plain clothes abducting you. It looks essentially identical to a random kidnapping. So, you know, good luck with that.
Pull the mask off? Would I try to videotape the scene? Would I try to pull the guys off of her? Maybe I would get scared and run away. The truth is, I don't know. Not knowing terrified me.
It's a deliberate act of terror. It's not necessary. It's just being done to create a spirit of us and them.
How are you even supposed to know if it's them? People could pretend to be ICE. Already happened. I believe there was a widely reported story of a woman who was threatened and abducted by people pretending to be ICE agents because they knew they could get away with it if they pretended to be.
Продажность. It's a word in Russian for corruption, but it's larger than corruption. It refers to a kind of existential state in which not only everything but everyone can be bought or sold.
Critics are calling this a quid pro quo deal between Adams and President Trump.
I'm committed to buying and owning Gaza. He made $2.5 billion today, and he made $900 million.
There's an expression in Polish. I found myself at the very bottom. And then I heard knocking from below. In Russian, that gets abbreviated to there is no bottom.
We cannot allow a handful of communist radical left judges to obstruct the enforcement of our laws.
What starts to matter is not what is concealed, but what has been normalized. There's no limit to the depravity.
President Trump did not rule out the possibility of a third term.
And the sadism.
The White House released this video titled ASMR, Illegal Alien Deportation Flight.
And the cruelty that we are watching now play out in real time.
This facility is one of the tools in our toolkit that we will use.
You have to continually ask yourself the question, is this okay? Is there a line I wouldn't cross? Is there something I would not do?
People say, oh, the Democrats should be doing more, they should be fixing things. But if you want the Democrats to do things, you have to create the platform for them. You have to create the spectacle, the pageantry, the positive energy, the physical place where they can come to you.
Well, I don't agree with that at all. I think that's an insane take. The idea that the problem with the Democrats and their abstemiousness is that the people aren't doing enough for them, when the people have time and time again, like, risen to support the inept Democrats, and the Democrats have just faltered and done nothing. I don't believe that for a moment.
Poland recently went through a shift towards authoritarianism. Unlike in Russia, unlike in Hungary, the media remained a place in Poland where you could criticize the regime. And as a result, democracy returned.
Well, until tomorrow, maybe?
The moral of Poland is that our democratic institutions, the media, the university, and the courts are essential. You know you're living in a fascist society when you're constantly going over in your head the reasons why you're safe. What we want is a country where none of us have to feel that way.
There were some things in this video that I liked and some things that I didn't. Are they actually leaving the United States? They're in Toronto now? Okay, well, at least they were telling the truth. Comments seem pretty based, actually. Yeah, I guess it's just, it's difficult to, I feel like it's difficult to prescribe anything that would actually fix this, because nobody who understands these problems seriously actually believes Democrats can fix this. Nobody can. It really is a socialism or barbarism moment, and nobody actually wants to advocate for socialism because A, it's not easy, and B, it makes you sound unserious. Like, we're dealing with a cascading chain of problems that ultimately comes back to capital. But for most people, the problem is that Donald Trump and the Republicans are corrupt. So to most people, right, if you're like, no, the only way to fix this is to, like, end the Fed or whatever, you know, you need to eradicate the class distinction, liquidate the assets of the bourgeoisie, establish a proletarian state, and destroy the modern, like, credit economy, most people would be like, can't we just get rid of Donald Trump? And the answer is, well, no, because all of these underlying issues are caused by a fundamental inequity that keeps, you know, that is finally, after all this time, decided to express itself in this form in this country. If you got rid of Trump, I mean, you could maybe buy a little bit of time. Yeah, even if you banned the Republican Party for, and fairly, I think, for their active destruction of the United States, treason, even if you banned them, if they were arrested for the extent to which they have openly committed violations of the law in service of their own, you know, wealth or in foreign powers, I mean, that you might be able to settle things down for a little bit, but you would still see inevitably a slow, grinding end to all the things that allow this country to exist in its current form, right? Like, whether it be the economy or civil society, things will eventually grind down. The corporations will keep on doing what they do best, which is buying democracy out from under our feet. And inevitably, people will be dissatisfied with the inept, incompetent Democratic leadership, and a fiery populist will take stage. And hey, listen, the next one might not be as old or as funny as Trump. There is no groundwork laid for the approach you would need. It's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about Zohran Mamdani running, of course, for the mayorship of New York City, because he's one of the only candidates right now worth paying attention to, whose plan is, he very clearly understands the direction we need to take this country. Very, very clearly, you know? It's not just about being better than the other guy. Yeah, he continues to close the gap. I saw this one, a mere 2-point difference among very likely voters. It's very, very possible he wins. I hope he doesn't get rat-fucked by his own party. Oh, and remember, by the way, in service of the point that the Democrats can't save us, the Democrats are anti-him. Even people who condemned Cuomo after he stepped down in disgrace have gone back to support Cuomo against Mamdani. The New York Democrats would rather see this country burned to cinders under the rule of the Republicans than to give up anything to socialists. No AOC endorsement yet, though I did see that apparently last time she endorsed a mayoral candidate, she did so I think on June 5th, so she still has a few days to do it before she ends up being later than she was previously. A bit of a late endorsement, but not too late. We'll see. Why the fuck do people who vote in local elections like this not know how to not vote for Cuomo? Because Cuomo is part of the machine, and they all live in the machine. That's all there is to it. Happy to hear that, Anna Banana. I thought Cuomo was a Democrat. He is. And, you know, he's evil. And part of the machine. Trust me, Republicans do not have a problem with Cuomo. He's basically already openly signaled that he's going to collaborate with the Trump regime. Politico's new attack on Zoran is that he's loyal only to the DSA and wasn't even trying to win. Yeah, Politico is just another, essentially, tool of the establishment. The hit pieces they've been putting out on Zoran are disgusting. It is really funny that the DSA is getting a enormous boost in membership off of running a candidate who's running as a Democrat. Like, they've been so antagonistic to political engagement within the Democrats for so long. They've, you know, tepidly engaged with it. They even retracted their endorsement of AOC. They run a Democratic mayoral candidate and they get 2,400 new members. Liberals always treat socialists as naive. It's so smug and annoying. Yep. Meanwhile, liberals lost everything. Everything. Liberals lost the country. They lost 3 branches of government. They can't do anything. We've never, like, genuinely, the country has never been in this dire of straits before. All of it by the liberals. All of it. Committing obvious mistakes over and over and over again. Things people like Bernie warned them against, but they did it anyway. And now they just sit there dumbfounded, you know, reaping rewards from their book deals or whatever else, their NBC interviews, fixing absolutely nothing. Seemingly no interest in fixing anything. New York City DSA has still endorsed AOC. Stop spreading misinfo. Didn't they very publicly unendorse her? Am I, like, faking that memory? Am I misremembering that? Ocasio-Cortez loses the Democratic Socialist endorsement over Israel? I remember this happening. That was the national committee, not local. Okay. I don't really think that means I'm spreading misinformation. Also, I don't respect the DSA structure to begin with. I believe, sorry, anarchists, I believe in, like, a centralized organization for something like this. I hate the fact that they all have their own little constituent movements.